Hello and welcome to the Womxn Show. I'm Lenina Rassool, and today, in honor of Youth Month, we are going to be focusing on young women and girls. After the break, we're going to be speaking to Nomfunfo Eland, who is the Executive Director of Emthonjeni Counselling and Training Services, and they work with young women and girls to help them with a range of issues such as HIV/AIDS, gender-based violence, economic empowerment, and more. Nomfunfo and I will be discussing the challenges that young women face today and some of the solutions that are necessary in order to help them build better lives. But before that, we're going to have a look at a short video with Nomfunfo introducing the work that she does. Let's have a look.
Hi, my name is Nomfunfo Eland, but call me Nono. I am from Khayelitsha. I am from an organization called Emthonjeni. We work with young women, looking at the young women's health, looking at issues that they face, gender-based violence, and one of them is menstrual hygiene, and looking at reducing period poverty.
Sporting Shots has been planning this street netball program for the last couple of years. We can't allow the streets to be taken over by the social evils. We've got to get our children back onto the streets playing sports.
It was a dream that hopefully this program to come in this area. I think Sporting Shots is doing a great job to reach to the disadvantaged people.
In July 2023, the Netball World Cup taking place. It's a global event. Teams are coming from all over the world to play. And what a wonderful opportunity for us as South Africans to showcase taking the game to the communities in Cape Town where the World Cup's going to take place. And that's exactly what this is all about.
You know, living in Khayelitsha for them, looking at stars like Womxn in national TV, that makes them realize that they can fly as much as they want.
This is for our young generation. It's amazing. It's really touching.
That was a short video introducing Nomfunfo Eland, who we will be speaking to after the break. But for now, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and it's June month. So this month we are focusing on young women and girls. And joining me for this conversation, this very important conversation, is Nomfunfo Eland, who is the director of Emthonjeni Counselling and Training, which is based in Khayelitsha. And we've just established this 14 years old, so you've been doing this work a long time, Nomfunfo. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lenina. Thank you so much for inviting me yet again in this show. I am super excited starting the Youth Month in this in this way. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, well, you know, I was very, very excited to have you back. And so, just so the audience knows, Nomfunfo joined us not very long ago as an author and a survivor of gender-based violence, and she was telling a story. She had contributed poetry and narrative to a book, a collection of essays, and that was such a powerful experience. And so, Nomfunfo, I think to take us into this conversation, where we're going to be focusing on youth and particularly young women and girls, I think we can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Thank you so much. So I am a mother of 3,
2 boys and 1 young lady who is 6-year-old. I'm an executive director of Emthonjeni Counselling and Training, but also I work with like-minded organizations who does similar work, because I believe that you can't do this in isolation. We need each other as different entities that contribute different, points of having to make sure that a young woman is looked after and develops into a woman that is thriving and taking up space and living their dreams beyond what we could necessarily do in a life that she can be able to, participate fully with all the freedoms, with all the rights that she has, and also feel safe to do so. As you can hear, I'm also a gender activist, a women's rights activist. We started this organization in 2010 during the World Cup, where we saw a number of HIV infections rising amongst young women, specifically also for women as well. During those days, I started this work doing work around those days, the Network on Violence Against Women. So straight from varsity into the work around shelters, where we're looking at how women, we can improvise and see and establish women's shelters at that time, and also train women on policies that exist so that people know what is rightfully theirs and where they should go to in cases where they experience gender-based violence. So my love for those issues, remember, if you look at the book that I was here for last time, at that time I was still in a healing process of issues of gender-based violence. And now I work in a shelter where more women are talking more about, some of their own experiences. And when I looked at it, it's even younger women. It's not women in marriages. It's not, middle-aged women, but it's younger women who are coming into the space of shelters. So I saw that the cycle is repeating itself. The age of experiencing gender-based violence is even getting, younger people. So we started with working with adolescent girls and young women in the organization, looking far back from primary school, so that people can, the kids can understand when things are done to them and their bodies that are not right things. We started this program through getting into the menstrual hygiene talks. We would go there and we do anti-period poverty campaigns, discuss with young girls when was their first period, so that we can also, get a rapport from them. When was your first period? If they have been having a period already, who do you trust to tell if you are on periods or not? For us, that was also an indication if this girl has support system or not. Because we couldn't start by gender-based violence, domestic violence, rape, if we did not start with easier, topics such as general menstrual hygiene. And those are some of the things where we would find that girls at that particular age have experienced gender-based violence, and then we begin the support. From there, and then into high schools, looking at much more things that are challenging for young women, and not surprisingly, the same things we are experiencing, the girls have experienced, the issues of domestic violence, and things that are, are contained at a household level, where people feel that if this child has been raped, let's contain it amongst the family. It's going to be an embarrassment. Myself, I experienced rape at that particular age, and no one trusts a child at that particular. It is difficult for even a child to talk about such, because the perpetrators will threaten the child. But when you get into things that the child is comfortable with, like the menstruation, like coming into adolescent stage, then the child would be able to open up. So this is how Emthonjeni started, by 2 women who also have experienced gender-based violence in different ways. I experienced it at childhood. My partner in business experienced it at marriage, level. So we take the girl child through all the levels of their milestones and look at what we can be able to assist.
Wow. Wow, Nomfundo, that is a mouthful, and that's amazing. And you know, I'm always amazed. I was just writing actually the other day that a lot of women find themselves going into this work as a result of their own lived experience, and that's very important. I mean, that helps to create programs around knowing what those challenges are and knowing how to build rapport and how to build trust with the women so that they can tell you. I find it really interesting that you speak about how abuse is contained within the household, that it's not spoken about. We know that that's why it's important to speak about these things. I want to just pivot, I think, into you've been doing this work now. I don't even want to say for the past 14 years, since 2010. You've been doing this work, you said, straight out of tertiary. And so you've gone straight into the network of violence against women. But in all of these years, noticing what the situation is like, what are some of the main challenges that we are looking at that young girls are facing now?
Yeah. Mostly it's domestic violence, watching their moms, their family members struggling within family relations, being beaten up, issues of poverty. And that is that is the worst that breaks my heart, because this is exactly what gets young women to be able to enable them to make proper positive decisions about their life. It's because of poverty. Moreover, gender inequality, even though they get opportunities, but you still find that the young men would be paid much more than the young women. Look at the care work that young women will get themselves in. Women not being, recognized for the work that they do at home. You'll find my brother is much more free to do things and live their lives the way they live, but there is strict restrictions for young women. Wash the dishes, look after the kids, make sure the household is intact. Even if you do that, that is not recognized as work, it is recognized as something that we have. So the gender norms are still right there. They are hectic for young women. Issues of poverty. A lot of young women are sitting at home without employment, without, economic generation programs that they can get into. Work, they're the ones who would, drop out at school earlier because family is not surviving, so they have to go and look for work for family to survive, either get pregnant at an early age because the issues of poverty, she could not take them, maybe got into a relationship just because there is transactional sex that happens there. So those are some of the things that that young women are also facing. But also, I was looking at some of the young women that we are trying to get into opportunities. They hardly have grade 9. They hardly have grade 10. The grade 12 minimum that is needed for most opportunities, young women, most of young women don't have those because of they have to drop out at school. But also, moreover, is the issue of rape and femicide. Gender-based violence has not only now gone into the beatings, the physical and emotional abuse. It's going into young women being killed by their own partners. It has gone into that level. As much as that we are giving them, education about their rights, we make sure they are able to articulate, they are able to get into spaces and take their rightful places into spaces, but also the boy child this side feels very threatened now by these all of a sudden articulative young women who are taking up space, and the only way now is to either abuse them or even kill them. So we are facing a number. We know the Uyinene cases, famous cases, but there are much more. Lots of other Uyinenes that are in our communities not being spoken about. So the issue of gender-based violence and femicide, And also the issue of unemployment, the issue of poverty, the issue of domestic violence still faces young women a lot.
And one of the things are, I think that all of the things, like we list them, right? But they intersect. They are all happening at the same time.
For instance, even Emthonjeni, as much as we were dealing with issues of gender-based violence, making sure that women live in an environment that is safe for them, but it intersected with issues of HIV infections. Because the more people who were abused, who were in situations or in relationships where they could not even negotiate safer sex, you know, those were the women who knew that their partners are having more other partners than multiple partners than themselves, but they couldn't move out of those relationships. And what happens, therefore, HIV infections were on the rise. So all of these, poverty and HIV, poverty and gender-based violence, all of those are, it's just a net of a spider web type of thing that intersect. So you can't deal with one end and not deal with the other.
Nomfunfo, I want to ask you, so we use terms like transactional sex. We're talking about, and for a lot of people, transactional sex, the first thing they think about is sex work, right? And we're not, I just want to be clear that we're not speaking about transactional sex in that way. So I wanted to go into, you know, in theory, we're thinking about the effects of poverty and how it removes power from women. We're talking about unemployment, but I think the practical, what that practically relates to is, yes, somebody, they've left school early to go and work, they have not found a job, and now they are sitting at home with no job and not contributing, right? And there isn't, it's not that they haven't tried. I had someone on the show, I think late last year, who had matric, who had a driver's license, who had, you know, she was a woman and she had everything and she could not find a job, and she was walking to job interviews. Exactly, we're sitting with graduates also. And so I think what is important to drill home is that when we look at our employment rate and how many of them are graduates, we had doctors marching the other day.
Social workers are sitting at home.
Social workers are sitting at home. But what I want to bring home is is possibly, if I may ask you, like, what does a day look like? What does the reality look like for somebody in that situation? Because it's easy to judge. It's easy to say, why has this person gotten into a relationship with somebody who cheats and abuses them and beats them, and they stay and they're sleeping with, you know, lots of men? What does this list look like in practicality? And I also just want to add, you know, when I think about, even when I was young, it was it's a big thing, poverty, not to have food or not to have enough bread, not to have something to eat. But even if you're on a level where you, to a degree, food secure, you don't have what everybody else has.
Exactly.
You wear broken shoes, you don't have clothing, you don't have clothes for the matric ball, you can't go anywhere. So what does this situation actually look like?
I'll make an example even with myself. Having gone to university, coming out, I did not come out of university and immediately go into employment. It took me to even volunteer to certain organizations, for me to get more knowledge, but also to keep busy and try and see if I can't get into this opportunity. Maybe I'll work my way up. But you know, even throughout those things, you would face issues of, you know, men in those environments who will try to say, I can make this easy for you and get you employment if you have sex with me. And those are some of the things that would hinder people who have value systems, people who knows that I qualify for this job. So it's not for me to actually pull down my pants for me to get into such opportunities. It has been made very difficult. It has been made very difficult, and in a competitive world, because we are all chasing the same, you know, opportunities, and there is a lot of us chasing for one opportunity. So it is not as easy, but also young women, we have different programs to empower them. They attend those programs, but do they come out into real opportunities, or it is just workshops? And then out of those workshops, the girl goes back home still hungry, with an expectation that you went and volunteered somewhere. Maybe you'll come and bring bread on the table. And also, are these programs resourced enough to intake those girls that have been already, trained and given these skills can you consume them and employ them on a full-time, or it is just a ticking the box type of an exercise where
Which
you
is,
do
you mentioned social workers, government
Yes.
subsidized, government
Yes.
itself subsidized all of those degrees, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But do they translate to permanent opportunities for young women to actually say, I went through this program, now I am actually employed? For me, if it was not feminists, if it was not other women who were in this position, who saw a potential and say, let's bring this young women in, let's mentor this young women to grow into the NGO field, it wouldn't have happened to me. I stayed over years volunteering for organizations that could not even give me a cent, but I was waking up every morning going and volunteering into their programs. So it means that we need to be intentional when we start doing these programs. I refused for young women to just volunteer in my organization if I do not have funding to either give them a stipend or to channel them into opportunities where they can generate their own income. That's the caliber of women that we actually do need right now, who can open those doors for you. My first international trip was through an organization, You Managing Conflict. A woman stood there, the Yasmins and them stood there and said, this woman has a potential. This young woman has a potential. Therefore, here is an international, opportunity that she could tap on, and we support it in the background to make sure that she is surviving in that opportunities. We need mentors for young women. We need people who would push those doors, who have gone through the hard parts of life, that understands fully well that a young woman next behind you would actually need this opportunity, and we still do.
Yeah. And it's such an important thing, I think, to go in there and to be able to see them, to be able to see that potential. Because I will say for myself as well, it was also women who saw my potential.
Exactly.
Who then hired me. Basic. They just thought, oh well, she can write, and it was also a process of volunteering that got my work in front of the eyes of decision makers who could make those decisions. And so I think that's also a very important thing that we need to think about, and maybe more networking even within the programs that we do for young girls. But Nomfunfo, we need to take a short break quickly, and we will be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and it is Youth Month. We are speaking about the challenges facing young women and girls, and also hopefully looking at some solutions for them. And still with me in studio is Nomfunfo Eland, who is the Executive Director of Emthonjeni Counselling and Training. And they're based in Khayelitsha. And I'm just going to say also, Nomfunfo, you were telling me before we started that you also operate in 6 sub-districts and across the Western Cape Metro. And so you do work with young women and with girls to empower them. You do gender-based violence, we're speaking about HIV, and also to empower them economically through skills development. And Nomfunfo, before the break, we were speaking about how hard it is to find a job, right? So with the high rates of unemployment, whether you're a graduate, whether you've left school early, you were speaking very deeply to your own experience where you had spent years volunteering before you even saw the light of a paid opportunity. And I wanted to just ask a follow-up question on that. So the follow-up question is, that must have been really tough economically. So we know, even to volunteer, I like to say, searching for a job is a full-time job. And all the costs attached to that is transport. If you don't have Wi-Fi or whatever at home, you have to go pay for an internet cafe. Printing is always a huge thing. So I wanted to ask you about that period. Like, what is that like economically? And I'm asking that question because I think I want people to just get a sense of, when we speak about the intersection of women ending up in situations where they have to perhaps stay with abusive partners, even young women, they don't live with them. Maybe they live at home, but they have this boyfriend who beats them up. However, at the same time, this boyfriend gives them money. But the money often is for transport, is for job searching. Is that the reality? Can you give us a sense of those economic decisions that they have to make?
That is a lived reality for many young women, where if a boyfriend is able to say, listen, here is money for data, here is money for going to an internet cafe, here is money for transport to go for interviews, here is money for you to update your CV. I know so and so. For instance, I was still volunteering when I lost a job for about 2 years. My own boyfriend said, I know so and so who's working in such and such a place. Let's have a conversation with him. So that person is mentoring you into spaces where you can be able to access certain opportunities. Reality is a woman will stay with that person. And we must not also run away from the fact that even our own societies and even our own families put pressure. If you have a boyfriend, as a girl, you are groomed that you must have a boyfriend that is rich, the young, tall, dark, and handsome, and rich. Those are some of the qualities that gets to be placed in front of you, so that when you are out with your boyfriend, you come in. I know some girls in Makasa would say, my mom would say, now you are using my own soap. Didn't your boyfriend give you Mavuso money? It's called Mavuso money. Didn't your boyfriend give you money for soap? So those are the realities that makes young women. They say you can't come in with knocking in my door with your hand. Your hands must be full with groceries. You must knock with your knee when you are coming. So society also put so much pressure into young women. They end up sitting in these violent relationships with no choice, because sometimes it is not by choice. That is why we cannot judge. That is why we cannot judge. But it is for us to sit with young women and see where can we be able to assist. Also, sometimes we go in front of the cart. We place the cart in front of the horses. We assume young women need certain things, but we don't sit down with them and do sort of a needs analysis. So the benefit for me to also, go and volunteered in organization, women's spaces, where they have done labor market assessments. While you are sitting at home, you wouldn't be exposed to that. These are the certain careers, these are the certain, career pathways that are now, are able to employ people. These are the careers that are too much concentrated, where you will struggle. That is what we do now, to say, let's do a labor market assessment. We partner with organizations like Smart HR Solutions, where they do this labor market assessment. We look at opportunities from CEDAS, from the NYDA. What does government have in place for the young people to actually, when a young person decides, I want to get employment, then we know, how is your CV looking like? Let's see if your CV is marketable or not. What else can we put into your CV? You volunteered with us and did this work. How can we channel you into that? But also educate them around labor policies as well. The sexual harassment policies, we educate them about that. What you channel the young women so that at least their mindset is ready for employment. Because sometimes it is a shocker when you are coming from school and you start the employment and things are totally different. Now you have to have certain responsibilities. There are rules governing the employment environment which you are not used to, which can easily, make young women, intimidate young women and make them to push back. So you get them their mindset ready for employment purposes. Should a young woman says, I do not want to get into the employment pathway, I want to start my own business, in which many of the young women that we are seeing in our programs are choosing that pathway. But also in there, the skills, the marketable skills, we need to equip young women with marketable skills. We need to link them with entrepreneurs that are also in their local spaces where they can be able to be monitored. Your financial literacies, how do you register your organization? That's where the CEDAS and the NYDA comes in. How do I get funding for such? How do I get my organization or my company ready for funding? who can assist with financial, with audits of my company, who can assist with this. So now we also give the young women a little bit of a starter pack. If she's in the beauty industry is making a lot of money currently, nail doing, makeups, hair doing, that's where we are actually saying, earlier on I was saying to some of the crew, do you know people who are training on doing braids and stuff, so that at least that you are young women, even if they know the basics of doing that hair, but they can be trained in a short course, they have a certificate to show for it, so that their business is seen as a credible business. So it's those things that you train young women into the ecosystem, township ecosystem, so that they understand the business language, so that when they pitch their businesses, they are able to pitch in a language that sponsors and donors are able to say. Link them with the banks. What are the possible packages that they can open? Bank accounts, co-ops. What does it mean to be in a co-op? But also, there are some young women who want to go back to school. We also assist them with those. People who would say, yes, I had my matric, but I felt this matric is not enough. I would have wanted to go back to school, but at that time, my situation was not permitting. So how do I go back to school? Then we also mentor them into doing this, asking the colleges to come and look at careers that they can be able to take. So that is a practical way of having to assist young people, instead of just giving workshop and information and leave them right there. But you have people who will check on you. They have amazing ideas now, how to use their social media to market their businesses, to run their business, not just as a tuck shop at home, but they know that this is a lucrative business that is also assisting my community. But there are challenges as well. We know the issues of protection orders. We know the issues of rental safety in our communities. So when they start to have their own spaces, there are issues of safety for young women. So but it's a doable thing.
Yeah. You're speaking so well a lot about the types of information that young women need access to. And I'll never forget, I did an article many years ago. I was still starting out, and I saw this NGO that was training up young people in sort of design, actually, like art and design. And they said I could interview some of the participants. And there was a young girl there who came from the same area that I grew up in. And I actually opened my article with her first line. She's like, she matriculated. She's like, I wanted to be a teacher, but we didn't have money to study. And that was full stop. And I, myself, am a product of a NSFAS bursary. So I was like, oh, well, haven't you heard of a bursary? And she had never even heard the word before. And I thought, how is it possible? So I'm working already. So I'm thinking, how is it possible that we stay in exactly the same area? And we know areas can also be divided into different sort of different socioeconomic spaces and classes and stages, and means and resources. But I thought, how is it possible that she had never even heard of it? And so I just wanted to ask, I think, how important is it for government, for organizations, for businesses, also to prioritize getting information to young women?
It is very important, because with most government entities, when you speak to them, they speak about, we can't do a workshop in Khayelitsha because of the issues of our safety and all that. It is important for young women to get information where they actually are. Not expect young women to move from where they are and go and search information, because remember, there's bus fare that is included in there. One young woman would have to now wage between buying bread for the whole family and taking that bus fare to go and get information elsewhere. Our libraries needs to be, equipped, needs to have these kind of informations. Our schools, not only target matriculants. When you are in matric, you should have made up your mind already what career path you want to take. Whether, so it needs to start from a grade 8, groom that child, even from a primary level. It needs to become a norm to talk about careers. I know there are career days where kids would wear but the situation changes, and we change our minds. I started doing analytical chemistry. By the time I came out, I said, I'm not going to be working with chemicals for the rest of my life. I went in there because there was a challenge that young women cannot, do scientific.
Yeah.
So I wanted to prove a point, but it helped me in a way because in the long run, now I became into the HIV space. There was research around science, of medication that people living with HIV have to take. So I could be able to translate science into an ordinary layman's language. But those are some of the things that we need to proactively do. What are the opportunities that we are untapped that young women could also go into, where they would not struggle to get a job, where they would not struggle to get income for themselves. So those are some of the things that we need to be really, really, really intentional about. But mentorship, mentorship. When I started doing my work as a life coach, I saw that people can't dream because the circumstances they grew under. I grew up in this shack. There is no one who has there's no one from my family who has had a car. There's no one. How do I dream about becoming a pilot when I did not even have a bicycle at home? So we need exemplary people who would say, I've made it out of this community. This is where I am. So those people would not be the superstars on TV, but it needs to start with us. I'm very happy to see how the economy is changing now in the township. We have baristas, we have like things that, cyclings, we have things that we have never ever imagined. Even the nails and the massages, we thought those things were for white people. We never thought they could actually get into this township and we make business out of it and our people enjoy those services. So those are some of the things that we need to see. What are opportunities that we can implement and give opportunity in their environment that they are used to? Even outside of that, we can do opportunity, but it needs to start where the young woman is.
I love that you brought in the issue of dreaming and the issue of life coaching. And I see that a lot of that work is sort of concentrated now on business women in their 30s and 40s, and it's also like paid for services and so forth. And I think one of the things I always think about is like, we are all human. Exactly. And one of the questions I wanted to bring into you was like, yes, we can speak about the statistics, we can speak about the challenges, we can speak about the collective group of young women who are experiencing these challenges, but you engage with them individually. And I wanted to get a sense of what that looks like. When we were here before, when we were speaking about writing, there was a lot of us who said, I was saying I was so fortunate because I wanted to be a writer and I was good at it, and that was legitimized, and that became something. I became the thing that I was dreaming about, and that was wonderful. But some of the other narratives were, we loved to write in our room when we were small, but that wasn't seen as legitimate. That wasn't. They could not envision even using this writing as a career. And so, are you inspired by the wonderful ideas that you see individually as these women? What are the things that they do dream about?
You could see what we are doing, taking writing into practicality, doing vision boards with the young women, looking at their journals, because we've also introduced journaling to young women. In the olden days, we used to have your dear diary.
Yes. Which we all learned from TV.
Yeah, right? We all learned from TV. And our dreams would be, jotted down in there. I wanted to be a social worker, and people were saying, you can't be a social worker because when we tell you issues, you cry first before. How would you do? But look at what I do today.
Yeah.
Look at what I do today. So we encourage from primary levels, when we go deliver that menstrual pack, we deliver a journal with them. We sit down and do vision board. We do a session on dreaming big so that people are not limited. Young women are dreaming of being astrologists. Young women are dreaming of international opportunities. They are dreaming about not only businesses that would occupy their space. They are looking at regional. We take them to regional spaces so they can see that it's not only about Khayelitsha or Cape Town, but there is a whole world that exists, you know, beyond where they are coming from. So those are some of the things that young women are dreaming, to take businesses regionally, start being millionaires, billionaires. They're looking at such dreams about themselves. And we encourage them to say, nothing is impossible. You can move from one career to another career and expand your vision broadly. I was when I started as an adolescent dreaming about the organization that I'm currently driving, that is internationally known for 14 years. Because in that 2010, I made a speech in an AIDS conference in Mexico. And that was when people started noticing me. So we make sure that we groom women to say, occupy every opportunity you get. Make sure that people don't forget you in that space. That will be how your dreams are going to be, particularly. In more than 20 years ago, I mean, now I'm 2 years before I am 40, I'm 48. But when I was that adolescent, you know, being in that mountain in my own village, when Tata Nelson Mandela was doing his first speech in coming out of prison, I would never forget that day, because I was in a mountain looking at my village. I was fetching the wood, but I was looking at my village, pretending that all those houses I'm seeing is the audience that is going to listen to me. Look at what is happening today. People from around the world listen to me. So those are some of the things that we inject in young people, to say, your dream is not only for the now, but your dream is not only for your household. Your dream should be bigger, that it also scares you. Because there are times when I look back and I'm like, is that really me?
Yeah.
But I get to be reminded every day that that day in that mountain, that was the stepping stone of how big your dreams can be. So that is the passion that we push behind young people.
Oh my goodness, I'm feeling so inspired right now. It's like, really, I mean, that is such a beautiful message. Nomfunfo, we need to take another short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You are still watching The Womxn Show, and we've been having such a great conversation about youth, particularly young women and girls. And still with me in studio, we are going to play out a little bit with this conversation is Nomfunfo Eland, who is the Executive Director of Emthonjeni Counselling and Training, that is based in Khayelitsha, but works across the whole Cape Metro. And Nomfunfo, you were speaking a lot about the type of work that you do with young women and girls. You were speaking about the different programs that you guys have, but also your own history. You know, what it means. I think really what we're speaking about is what it means to be a woman, a young woman in South Africa, growing up with all of these challenges that we've seen. You've spoken about, and I'm just going to do a quick recap. You know, some of those challenges are unemployment. We're speaking about economic challenges like poverty and so forth, gender-based violence. Rape and femicide is something that you particularly brought out. HIV was an issue, and there were more. And trying to, I think, also speaking about trying to find a way in this life, trying to find a path in this life. Because before the break, we were also speaking about life coaching. We were speaking about bringing vision boarding into our communities, and not just this rah-rah thing that we sort of go to, right? And that we can pay for to do a vision board, but really bringing it in as a practice to try to build a path to something better. But one of the things that also struck me, and I think that we've neglected to mention, is also the mental health. So when we look at the intersection of all those things, I've spoken a lot, I'm very cognizant of the fact that if you are unemployed, and you were speaking about mothers sometimes saying, don't knock on my door with empty hands, bring something. When there's no contribution, when you have no control over not bringing a contribution, when you are not contributing through no fault of your own, but you are seen to be taking, that can really diminish a person. And then the intersection of all the other things, like abuse, like sexual abuse, like rape, like gender-based violence, like Sometimes we heard in one of the shows that you were in last time, sometimes it is your own family also that is abusing you through still beating you. How is the mental health of the girls that you work with, and how important is it for programs to also address this?
Well, that is such a huge, huge issue. Remember, we don't live in a vacuum. As much as we have, pressures of our own, many young women who have pressures of their own, they are being compared to their colleagues, their, people in their own age groups who might have made it in terms of, went and studied, now getting jobs, their careers are flourishing. Here you are, you were going to school with the same people and you are not as fortunate to be climbing those ladders. Now there are issues of the family has worked so hard. My mom was working in a restaurant, others domestic workers, others selling, others mom selling in the rain, vegetables and so forth. So for you to go to school, I'm speaking moreover for graduates as well, making sure that you go into this expensive institution of higher learning. Now you're coming back, you do not have a job.
You must have felt a bit of that, did you?
I felt it. I felt it because, as much as I got bursaries going, but my mom was working in a restaurant. I had to change even addresses for me to actually get into the doors of higher institutions and use the Wynberg address instead of a Nyanga East, Nyanga East address for me to get into to those. So there are these pressures that your same age group has a car, your same age group, you are having a child at home probably, because some of the young women that we work with are also facing, like, depending on a social grant somewhere, they have kids that they also need.
They are mothers
they are mothers also. So all those pressures and the expectations from society around them gets into their mental health issues. We make sure that people get counseling. We have a wellness center that is based in town too, that has been started by Emthonjeni, where we young women can access sexual and reproductive health, but also access counseling and life coaching. We have safe spaces in the areas where our young women are, where they can come and debrief, where they can come and share, their opportunities for work. We take them into the EPWP programs, those who can, so that at least they get. So it is very important. We instill the culture of self-care. We instill the culture of self-care. We get women's organizations or women's salons. We have spa days sometimes so that people can access that. There are a lot of other women who come in and do our girls massages and their nails and just prioritizing self-care. We also use writing as a way of also, healing process, as a way of debriefing as well. So that is why it is not that difficult when they have to take some of those writings and publish them when they want to. But we also use writing and healing spaces and music, different types of healing for young women to do that, but also express themselves. We have a lot of young people who are suicidal currently. We have lots of young people who are living with anxieties and depression. So we link some of those also with psychologists and programs that exist for them to take care of their mental health. But the space where their peers are, where they can also debrief together, where they can also take their learnings and experiencing and talk about together. Those are some of the things that we really emphasize on. No self-care, no mental health programs. We don't take such programs. We enforce even for whoever sponsors us or our donors of our work to say this is an important component of our work. We can't leave that program behind. So it is very important that every aspect of programs that are targeting young people to look at, instilling the issue of young people looking after their health, their mental health, and also, create debriefing sessions and programs for for young people to do just that.
I love everything you said. I wanted to say, I wanted to add to that, but Nomfunfo, we have 1 minute left. I just want to, how can people get hold of you and find it more?
We are on Facebook, Emthonjeni Counselling and Training, with a nice, beautiful logo. There's a lot of Emthonjeni there, but also find me at elandnomfundo@gmail.com. On TikTok, Lady President. My number is 078 456 3842.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And that is all we have for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lenina Rassool. Goodbye.